For this video, I thought I'd start out with something a little bit simpler. I want to talk about the Virginia 20th Rally in Richmond and the story that's going around about UN troops are going to be employed in Virginia. Now, there is a little bit of misinformation that's out there on this, claiming that I'm the original source on this information. The source that I got this information from is from listening to Matt Bracken and Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. Both of these people are Special Operations Forces veterans. They still have contacts in the Special Operations community. Now, I've read some of the articles put out by Mike Adams. I've listened to interviews done with Mike Adams and interviews done with Matt Bracken. That's where I've pulled some information from. Both of them are telling pretty much the same thing. Their information came out at about the same time period, so I'm guessing, they weren't linking to each other. They were getting their information from people inside Special Operations, giving them the information. Is it possible that they're both drawing this information from the exact same source within Special Operations? Yes, it is. I don't know the people they talk to, so I can't say for certain on that one. Now, for those that aren't aware of this, Mike Adams had put out an article talking about he was told that the Virginia government is considering putting up roadblocks around Virginia after the legislation is passed. So they're already planning on it will be passed. It may be by a narrow margin, but it will pass. Now, they know that these roadblocks and the gun control legislation is going to cause a lot of problems in Virginia. And Mike Adams and Matt Bracken are both saying that they're hearing that is the whole point. The point of this stuff happening in Virginia is to cause chaos. It's to cause anarchy. They know that a lot of law enforcement, sheriffs and local in communities are not going to enforce the gun control legislation. They're going to say no because it's clearly unconstitutional. So then the talk became, and this came from Representative McEachum, or Ickham, the fat fuck. Okay, he put out that the Virginia governor should call up the National Guard to go in and arrest this law enforcement if they refuse to follow these laws that they will pass. And then the National Guard will also be used to confiscate known firearms, which will add to the chaos. They know that the Virginia National Guard, some of the units will follow the orders, a lot of them won't. I fully expect you're going to have commanders that will follow the orders because that's the order given to them. But the individual troops, when they get told, okay, we got to be on the vehicles at this time to roll out, well, 15 minutes or so before that time, they're going to disappear out the door carrying their M16s, their saws, their 240s, and whatever ammunition they somehow have been scrounged up by their leadership for this operation. They'll disappear, they'll reform their units out in the woods, and operate alongside militias, operate alongside law enforcement that will resist the raids. So there's going to be a huge split in the National Guard, which will add to the chaos. Now, some people are saying that they're not going to get the firearms because there's no registration, so they're not going to know who has them. There has been, and I've said this multiple times, There has been a firearms registration in this country for over 20 years, well over 20 years, and that is your ATF form 4473, your little form that you fill out whenever you purchase a firearm from a licensed dealer. That form, the original paper ones, could never be destroyed, and when that company, that firearms dealer, that gun dealer, whatever you want to call him, whenever he closes up shop, all those 4473s by federal law had to be turned over to the ATF. Nowadays they have an electronic 4473, so when you're buying a firearm, you're filling the stuff out online, and that goes directly to the ATF, and they say yes or no, you know, the yay or nay. All this stuff, all those forms, especially the electronic ones, are the database, are the registration of your firearms. They know what you have, they know where you live, they know when you purchased that firearm. I've said this multiple times. And when they would show up at your door, you say that you sold that firearm. Unless you show proof that you sold it, they're going to claim you still have it, and they will arrest you for violating the law. Now, I fully expect that when this stuff passes in Virginia, that there's going to be a little packet coming, or a sizable packet, coming out of ATF headquarters going to Virginia to their Attorney General. That packet will include all firearms known to have been sold in Virginia since the database started. That gives them a starting point to go off of. For those of you claiming that there is no registration, they don't know who has what. Yes, they do. Now, the chaos will develop in Virginia. People are going to fight back. You're going to have law enforcement that's going to say no, they're going to fight back. They're going to resist. You're going to have National Guard, they're going to resist. You're going to have militias resist. You're going to have just plain Joe Sixpack out in the woods who's not part of a militia or anything. You know, he's just interested in his football, you know, looking at porn once in a while and going hunting and fishing. He's going to resist. So this is going to cause chaos. Add to this, you're going to have leftist groups that are going to be employed. Groups such as Antifa. And you're going to see anarchist groups and others that are going to be fed into Virginia to add to the chaos. I've heard it said that Richmond is a major stronghold for Antifa on the East Coast, but cannot confirm that. But it would make sense. If they're trying to start the stuff in Richmond, in Virginia, it would make sense they would do it in a place where you're going to have a stronghold of the leftist cannon fodder, who are brain dead zombies. They're going to go off of whatever they're told, whatever inciting rhetoric they're given. They're going to get incited to attack patriots, attack Trump supporters, whoever that they're ordered to. They will add to the chaos. I would not doubt that you'll probably see the employment of a few of the Islamic fascist infiltrators we've had into the United States, people that are loyal to Al-Qaeda, loyal to ISIS and other terrorist organizations. I wouldn't doubt it that they might be employed to add to the chaos also, setting off a few bombs, which will get blamed on the militia. And then possibly you'll see the employment of narco gangs along the lines of MS-13. See them get employed also to add to the chaos. They're trying to cause anarchy, everything to just completely fly apart in Virginia. Now, while this is going on, I fully expect and anticipate that the lawmakers in the Virginia legislature, especially the ones that voted yes for this legislation, they're going to disappear. You're not going to find them. You're not going to find them at their homes, at their headquarters, at the state capitol, anywhere. They'll be off hiding, probably out of state. If they're still in state, they'll probably be on a government installation. There is a lot of them in Virginia, ones that you know about, ones that you don't know about. There is quite a few government bunkers in Virginia left over from the Cold War. And if you're aware of this stuff, you know that a lot of those bunkers, especially the federal controlled ones, they have been getting expanded, improved, and upgraded and restocked since 9/11. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that some of these legislatures might end up hiding inside some of those facilities. And they'll get hidden there by their contacts within the deep state, which is in the federal government. So we got chaos is kicking off in Virginia. And it will spread to neighboring states. It'll spread into Maryland. It'll spread into Georgia, the Carolinas, West Virginia, and everywhere that has a border with Virginia. That chaos will spread outwards. My guess is most likely that is you're going to see the chaos spread by the leftist elements, by their cannon fodder, by the Antifas, Black Lives Matter, and that stuff, dressing up, in militia and hillbilly camouflage, whatever you want to call it. They'll cause problems in those states to spread the chaos outward. While this is going on, you're going to have Trump is seeing the situation. He's going to try reacting to it. He'll be sending out orders to federal law enforcement to get involved, maybe to arrest the legislatures in Virginia for doing this unconstitutional stuff and deliberately inciting the situation. You'll see him possibly activating troops in Virginia and neighboring states. I would expect to see, you're going to see the U.S. Marine Corps that would get sent in. You're going to see the 82nd Airborne sent in out of Bragg. Now, a lot of those orders coming from Trump will not make it to the troops. And if the troops do get an order, it's not going to be the orders that were sent out by Trump and by the commanders that back him. Remember, there's still a very large vein of the deep state still in the federal government, in the intelligence community, in law enforcement, in the military. Especially the officers in the military, the senior officers. The only reason they're still there after Obama is because they were loyal to the deep state. Don't forget, Obama purged the military of any constitutionalist officers and senior non-commissioned officers. They were kicked out, they were given their retirement papers and sent home. So the ones that are left over, well over 90% of them are loyal to the deep state. So you're going to get orders sent out to the troops that are not the ones that Trump is sending out. This has happened before in history. 1975, the fall of South Vietnam. You had communist agents inside the South Vietnamese army working literally in the headquarters, in the inner workings of it with the command staff. They were sending out false orders. They were posting wrong unit locations on maps. They were messing up the radio transmissions, blocking communications, cries for help from the field, and all that stuff. They were causing chaos there too. Expect a similar type of situation in this event. You're going to have the president who's sending out orders, but the orders aren't making it to the troops, and more than likely he's not going to be getting correct information either, because you can't count on the media is going to be putting out the truth of what's going on. He's got to rely on what he's being given by his advisors. And has been said before, the deep state has a lot of people close into Trump as advisors. That's been said before. So you got this chaos that just keeps gathering and gathering. Trump's going to look ineffective in that stuff. That's what the media is going to tell you. That's what the demon rats are going to tell you. That's what the rhinos are going to tell you, the never-Trumpers in the Republican Party. They're going to blame all this stuff on Trump. They're going to blame on the anarchy, the breakdown and all that on Trump. They're going to blame it on patriots. They're going to blame it on constitutionalists, on Christians, on militias. Anyone they're trying to demonize at the time. Anyone that they believe they cannot control fully. Now, as this gets worse and worse, you'll probably see the United Nations start holding sessions to discuss this, because the United States is a very major piece in the international community. If the United States falls, the world falls, because the United States is a very large chunk of the trade that goes on in the world, of the financial markets, the military markets, and military security around the world for different countries. You know, if the US goes down, those go down, and the whole world starts falling apart. So you'll see the United Nations start discussing this stuff. And they'll be sending letters to Trump, making phone calls telling him he better stabilize the situation or they will have to step in. Trump will say he's trying to, but stuff's not going the way he's ordering. So then the United Nations will start talking about he's ineffective as a leader. He can't control his own country, can't control the situation. You're then going to see a shift into, should we send in peacekeepers? And then you're going to have the globalist elements in the United Nations, which, you know, is pretty much all of them. They're going to propose sending in peacekeepers to the United States to stop this anarchy before the entire country collapses. I think when you see that talk beginning, that's when you're going to see the anarchy start spreading across the country. You'll see activation of other cells across the United States, which will start attacking police, attacking government, whatever. It'll all be blamed on the militia and the patriot community. I expect you would see bombings, especially truck bombings, which would be employed by the Islamists out of like Dearborn, Michigan, Little Mogadishu in Minnesota, which is a major hub for Somali Muslims and Syrian refugees and that stuff. There's a lot of activity in that area, I've heard. There's a lot of activity for Boko Haram, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and that stuff. And you have other terrorist Islamist communities spread out across the United States, and there's always these little threads of these groups in those communities. You'll see them start activating. They'll be putting up truck bombs, blowing up government buildings. You're going to have the media then come out, talk about, oh, this is the Patriots. They're doing the same thing that Timothy McVeigh did back in 95 in Oklahoma City. I think it was 95, could have been 94. And, you know, it's just going to keep building, adding to the chaos, and you'll see the UN troops come in. Now, some people have said it won't happen because UN troops do not have the equipment to be able to pull off the operation, and it would be a giant logistical nightmare. It's actually easier than you think. The only thing the troops coming in from overseas would need to bring is their individual weapons and their individual equipment. So their load-bearing equipment, their duffel bag of stuff, you know, and their radios, possibly. Most of the equipment they will need for major end items is already here in the United States. There is huge stockpiles of aircraft and vehicles all across the United States in depots. A lot of this is war stock. You also have stuff in there for Guard and Reserve units. And that equipment wouldn't be too much different than these UN troops would be using in their home countries. Remember, the United States supplies the majority of the military equipment used in third world countries, especially now. A lot of those countries replaced their Soviet era equipment with US-made stuff. So they're coming in, jumping on equipment, not too much different than what they have at home. You know, they're jumping on it, maybe changing the markings and stuff, and that's all they really got to do is change the markings. They don't have to change the camouflage or anything because it won't matter. And then they deploy out and do whatever their orders are. Now, as for them getting here, it's simpler than what you think. I've seen one person say the only way they could do it is they'd have to use the U.S. military's landing craft and ships. No, they don't. The troops can be brought in on commercial airliners. Same as they did in Afghanistan in 1979. The Soviets went into Afghanistan, the first wave, paratroopers on commercial airliners landing at the airport in Kabul. So there you go. The UN troops are coming in and they get bussed over to where the equipment is. They fall in on it, they use it, and they deploy outward as first supplies. Really simple. They requisition it from existing stocks in the United States. And wherever possible, they take it from civilian stocks. They take it from logistics facilities across the United States, from those gasoline tank farms, from those warehouses, distribution centers, and all that stuff that handle food for stores. Maybe even taking some of the food from stores themselves to feed their troops, which adds to the chaos. Now, some of those troops will be used to take control of major ports of entry. They'll be used to take control of airports. They'll be used to take control of harbors. Now, as for ships bringing in equipment, once again, it's a lot simpler than you think. The Chinese government controls the shipping that's flagged out of China. So they take those cargo vessels, send them wherever, load up whatever equipment, whatever additional troops, and they ship that to the United States also. You're beginning to see how this can be done. Now, I'm taking what Mike Adams said, and I'm wargaming it outward. I'm trying to figure out how could they do it and what would they do. Mike Adams said that in the plans, they're hoping to cause so much chaos that the United Nations has to step in with peacekeepers to try to control the situation. While that's going on, then the leftists, the deep state, will use that to purge the government at state and federal levels to take control. So you can see how this can be done here. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. So then the question becomes, well, what should we do? If this is a potential scenario, what should we do? I still believe people should be showing up on January 20th, as many as possible. If we show up there with such overwhelming numbers, and right now the president of the VCDL, Virginia Citizens Defense League, says they're estimating between 50 to 100,000 people are probably going to show up to the rally. If we show up with over 100,000 to Richmond, maybe that will make them think twice. Maybe that will make the deep state and the leftists think twice about their plans. But who knows for certain? If it's true that the whole point of this stuff is to cause a war, maybe it won't do a damn thing but get a lot of people inside one area so they can be taken care of. I don't know. So, I have seen a video this morning that said Virginia is not the only state that is considering this draconian unconstitutional gun legislation. At least 12 other states right now are considering similar legislation. It's either already on the docket for a vote after January 1st in these states, or it's in committees for them to consider to put on the docket for the next legislative year. So it's already spreading outward, which would make sense if you're trying to cause chaos. You know, that'll definitely add to it. That would make sense. So my feelings are 2020 is going to be the year. 2020 is going to be the year where we go hot, the way things are looking right now. So as I've said before, everyone needs to be ready. You need to be stocking up on that food. You need to be stocking up on those medical supplies. As soon as spring comes around, you see the gardening centers go up and that stuff. You need to be getting extra sets of gardening tools. You need to be getting seeds especially heirloom seeds, non-GMO seeds that will procreate every year, that you can reuse the seeds, and learn how to harvest those seeds so that you can do that every year. You need to have water filtration. You need to be ready for that. Not just a life straw. You need to have stuff along the lines of Berkey filters. You know, either get an actual Berkey or build your own using their types of filters or something comparable. You know, and get knowledge. Don't count on the internet to stay up during all this. Get paper books. If you download information from the internet onto your computer, put it onto thumb drives, put it onto external hard drives, so that if they go through, shut down the internet, if they fry out computers for whatever reason, you still have that information that's disconnected from it that's still safe, that you can potentially reference later. But it still comes out to paper books are better, having those on hand. So hopefully this gets you guys thinking on this stuff, gets you wargaming the situation. I've put out where the sources were that I got this info from. It was from Mike Adams. It was from Matt Bracken. When you look at people's articles and podcasts where they talk about this stuff, they always cite those too. So those are the sources for the talk about the security contractors. They're the sources for the talk about roadblocks. They're the sources for talks about a false flag is being planned right now in Richmond. They just have not decided which one they're going to employ. They're planning multiple ones, and they're going to see which best fits the situation to get the result that they want. Mike Adams is also, well, both of them I think have talked about it, are the source for the talk about trying to get the United Nations involved. So, as I've said before, good luck and may God be with you. And for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, Essayons.